Nah, hey, look, man, Eminem is Eminem, and I like Eminem. He's one of the good MCs. And I used to think Eminem was better than me.
So what you saying right now?
He's not. Challenge. Hey, challenge it.
Game, you don't want to go versus against Eminem?
Yes, I do. What do you mean? Yeah, I do. What do you mean?
The Game finally dropped his long-awaited album Drillmatic, which includes the Eminem diss track The Black Slim Shady. Expectations were high when he announced the song 4 months prior to the release of the album. Game always respected M and viewed him as a superior MC. But not too long ago he told us that he has changed his mind and he wants to prove once and for all that he's up there with the greats, and that Eminem is not unbeatable anymore. So let's dive into the song and break it down step by step. It's 10 minutes long, so we have a lot to talk about. The concept itself, unfortunately, doesn't make much sense to me. He likens himself to Eminem's alter ego, on a song where he's dissing him.
Hi, I'm the Black Slim Shady.
Wait, you just dissed me, I'm perplexed. Insult me in a line, compliment me on the next, damn.
Are you paying homage or sending shots? He disses the same thing he claims to be. Calls him old, washed up and whack.
You 38 and you still rapping,
You 38 and you still rapping,
Like, why are you trying to be him if he's that whack? You say his music is unlistenable. Then why are you trying to sound like him on the song? An explanation could be that he's trying to prove himself and show the world that he can rap on the same level as M and that Slim is nothing special. Like, look, you call M a rap god even though everyone can rap like him. You just have to adjust your voice and rap like a crazy white boy. It's not difficult. Maybe that's the overall message. But it's really hard to tell. It could be that he's trying to use Eminem's old style to diss his new one. But he does it in the most respectful way. Kinda like a fan almost. All the references he drops, it's almost like he memorized every single one of his songs. Which is kinda surprising, cause he said he ain't listening to his music like that. So how do you know all his lyrics, flows and cadences? I asked myself if he's just trying to promote his new album, by hyping this song up for 4 months straight. The first 2 verses aren't even aimed at Eminem. I think he wanted to do something creative for the culture, a few jabs here and there, but nothing too crazy. Cause I know how Game sounds when he's really trying to hurt you. This is not how he usually approaches a diss track. We saw him disrespect the shit out of people in the past. He skinned rappers alive with 100, 200 and 300 bar diss tracks. Like against 50 Cent for example, Lloyd Banks, Young Buck, Spider Loc, the whole G-Unit basically. Yukmouth, Jay-Z, Joe Budden, 40 Luck, the list goes on and on. Game was always rapping aggressively, full of energy, all serious and as disrespectful as possible. But maybe he just wanted to try out something different this time. This diss track sounded like a mixture of 4 songs basically. One where he's just rapidly rapping about being the illest, a continuation of the Stan story with his brother Matthew, an exaggerated parody of Slim Shady done as flattering, and an actual diss record aimed at the whole Shady, Aftermath and G-Unit camp. People had mixed feelings about it. Some thought it was too soft and not worth a 4-month wait, others liked it as a song but not necessarily as a diss track. The beat was produced by Hit Boy and sounds dark, slow and sad almost. I don't think it was intended to be used for a diss track. Not made to approach it aggressively and to just spaz out high on energy to dismantle opponents like Nas on Ether or Tupac on Hit 'Em Up for example. This is more of a deep, movie-like, story-driven rant or essay almost that he wrote down to get things off his chest. Kind of like a letter from a fan, or like Stan, which is probably the overall thought process behind it. Cause Stan's brother Matthew actually appears in the song and drives the Game around in an Uber, telling him that he was once a fan of M and that he fell off now. This is actually similar to what Cannabis did in 2001 on a song called You Didn't Care, which was a diss track aimed at Eminem.
You was looking at him the same way I'm looking at you. Why can't we be friends, Em? I don't want nothing from you.
You like it, Slim? I made it just for you. I even kidnapped Stan's brother and baited him here for you.
In that song, Stan survived, drives around with Cannabis in his car, and writes another letter to M. Cannabis mimicked Eminem's rapping style and rapped from the perspective of Stan, to praise and at the same time diss him while he's telling a story. Same thing the Game does on the Black Slim Shady, with the only exception that he's not actually rapping from the perspective of Stan, but from the viewpoint of a fan who knows even the tiniest details about him, pretending to be him, just like a Stan. So instead of Stan rapping, we have the Game rapping like a Stan. He mimics Eminem's tone of voice, cadence and rhyme style when he rap with his Slim Shady alter ego, his subject matter and punchlines. Wouldn't be the first time that he got inspired by cannabis. I mean, he got the whole idea of rapping 100 bars, 200 bars and 300 bars all from cannabis. But You Didn't Care made more sense to me than the Black Slim Shady. Cause he didn't call himself Slim Shady while simultaneously dissing Slim Shady. Game's song feels more like a critique-filled letter from an ex-fan who doesn't really like him anymore. But he still wants to be him. An obsessive stan with a bipolar disorder basically. Complimenting and at the same time dissing him. He toyed around with M's flow, his weird subject matter, added a few jabs here and there, and that's it. Anyway, let's take a look at the lyrics. In the intro we can hear Stan's brother Matthew, who's now an Uber driver, calling his grandma, telling her that he still has to pick somebody up. And this person, you guessed it, is the Game. The first verse is basically just filler. Don't know why it's on here. He's just talking his shit, saying that he's sick of people, that he's flying to the Philippines, drinking and smashing the rapper Sweetie. He paints his face to look like M, and then we hear the hook, which is actually pretty enjoyable.
Hi, I'm the Black Slim Shady.
Hi, my name is what? My name is Slim Shady.
He starts off his second verse by saying that he killed Dr. Dre in his basement, referencing a line from the song The Real Slim Shady, from the Marshall Mathers LP in the year 2000.
I killed Dr. Dre in my basement last night.
And Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead. He's locked in my basement.
He basically jumped into the Slim Shady role and raps about the same stuff M used to rap about early on in his career, when he was doing all these horrorcore-ish songs back in the day, in which he was always chopping up and killing people. Then he makes a COVID-19 joke, mentions Drake, his producer 40, playing around with the word beef, probably to mock Eminem for his corny punchlines and wordplay. I mean, he's rapping like M and trying to sound like him, so why shouldn't he also copy his corny punchlines? But this verse overall is just like the first one, not really aimed at Eminem. It's more of a Eminem parody. Just Game trying to show the world how lyrical he can be if he wants. Cause he feels like people are not giving him enough credit and respect. He's rapping about himself while trying to copy M's over-the-top, senseless and stupid all-over-the-place subject matter that is supposed to shock the listener. Like the lines about him getting hard when seeing the obese singer Lizzo, and getting a little dick when seeing people who had plastic surgery. It's something that you would expect to hear from somebody like an Eminem, who basically made himself a reputation for crazy, weird, disgusting shock value rap that is supposed to be funny. But Game didn't really manage to sound as entertaining as M. We are now 2 minutes and 50 seconds in and still don't know where the song is going. What is the key message of the song? The listener still doesn't know if it's just a parody, a troll song, or a real diss track. It feels like a waste of time and letdown considering all the hype and promises that were made from his camp. We were all expecting something great from a rapper of his caliber. He basically wasted the first 3 minutes of his long-awaited quote-unquote career-ending diss track. There are MCs who won entire battles in less than 3 minutes. Just straight to the point, deadly, disrespectful lines with as many quotables as possible, like on Checkmate for example, where Jadakiss basically tore 50 a new asshole in just 2 minutes. Instead of trimming down the fat and making a concise, sharp and straight to the point song, you decided to stretch it out to 10 minutes for clickbait basically. When I saw the length of the song, I thought to myself, he just has way too much to say to stay under 5 minutes. But what we got instead is 2 verses of filler out of 4, and a disappointing start to what could have been the best Eminem diss track in history. Anyway, the diss track is slowly starting to take shape with the interlude. He has a brief conversation with Matthew in the car. Game asks him about a starter cap, and Matthew mentions some of the things in the song Stan. How Eminem signed it for him and how his brother died 22 years ago. And then Matthew talks about M's fall from grace, how him and Stan were praising him when he was a kid, and how he hates his most recent music. Just like most Eminem critics. All of a sudden Game pulls out a gun and points it at him, telling him to drive, and that's when he gets to the third verse at the fucking 4-minute mark. We have to wait 4 minutes to get to the actual diss. The same exact duration of Eminem's last diss track, Kill Shot. You're going up against someone who killed his last opponent in just 4 minutes. And you can't even get to the point. Think about it from a listener standpoint. In this day and age, people's attention spans are so short that the average song duration nowadays is about half as long of what it used to be. Artists these days try to release songs that are around 1 to 2 minutes long, cause in the streaming era most people don't want to sit through 10-minute songs. 4 minutes to get to the interesting part. That's the same length of 2 songs these days. This diss won't have any replay value, I'm telling you. I'm not saying you should make a 2-minute diss track, but don't stretch it out and add unnecessary filler, cause people get bored and ask themselves why it takes so long for you to get to the point. Anyway, let's get to the part where it gets interesting. Verse 3. He starts off by mentioning Dr. Dre, the guy who basically saved Eminem's life, gave him a career and also helped Game to drop a classic. Dre was the executive producer of the documentary, his best album in my opinion. It sold over 2 million records, and that's all thanks to Dr. Dre and 50 Cent. Cause his debut album, The Untold Story, which came out a year prior, only sold like 80,000 units. So it doesn't really make sense for you to diss Dre, who never said anything about you, and also to say that Dr. Dre and 50 Cent never did anything for you. He was making headlines with these statements a few months ago. I was there when the documentary dropped. He was everywhere at this point. And without Dr. Dre and 50 Cent on his side, it slowly started to go downhill for him. That's just the honest truth. Ask Dre, all I got is my words, my dick and my Mac 10. One thing you can never have is my motherfucking black skin. People on Rap Genius were saying that this is a reference to Eminem's song Criminal, where he said, I drank more liquor to fuck you up quicker than you'd wanna fuck me up for saying the words, and then he pauses, just like the game. And we all know what rhymes with liquor and quicker.
I drink more liquor to fuck you up quicker than you'd wanna fuck me up for saying the word.
One thing you can never have is my motherfucking black skin.
But this one is a reach. I don't think he was talking about that song. He's just trying to say that M's race prevents him from being able to say what the game can, no matter how much he tries to be black. And he continues this black and white thing in the next lines, where he basically says that the black skin ain't something that you can wear, or take off, or buy like a mansion, or something that you can earn or win like an award or a plaque. It's something you're born with, and no matter how hard you try to be black, you'll always be a white guy who's trying to be something that he's not. That's basically what he was trying to say. I just want to hear one diss track on M that doesn't mention his skin color. I mean, this has been a topic for over 2 decades now and we still haven't moved on. In the next few lines, he mimics Eminem's flow and cadence on the song Lose Yourself.
Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. Choke. He's so mad, but he won't.
Oh, he goes platinum and oh, I'm on the map with him. He got all the blackest friends. He wants to be African.
It's once again a parody to mock him and his come up in life, saying he was on Aftermath with him, mentioning him going platinum, and accusing him of wanting to be African by only having black friends around him. I mean, it's true that M is always surrounded by black rappers rather than white ones, but he was never really trying to be black, I think. I mean, he used his white trash image in all of his songs, rapped about his blonde hair and his mozzarella white skin in almost every song. You act like you never seen a white person before, Jaws on the floor. I mean, he has all those lines in songs like The Real Slim Shady, the same song Game referenced like 10 times, so how did he even miss it? You could of course say that he just attempted to claim legitimacy in black culture, but to say that he wanted to be black, I don't think so, we have no proof of that. Then he mentions his little beef with 50 Cent, Dr. Dre and Aftermath after his album The Documentary dropped. He then released The Doctor's Advocate a year later on a different label. Dre didn't want to mess with him anymore cause of Game's beef with 50, which was a completely normal thing to do. I mean, he was 50's guy, not Dre, not M's. So why would he continue to work with you if 50 was the guy who introduced him to you? And now that you're beefing, it only makes sense that Dre picks the guy who he knows the longest. And if you leave the label, then of course Dre won't be the executive producer of your next albums. There's nothing to complain about here, that's just how the business works. Game wanted to prove that he can put out dope albums without Dre producing for him. And he's more or less bragging about it, basically implying that he could do all this without Dre's help, in contrast to M, who needs Dr. Dre to put out albums. He's actually credited as the executive producer of every Eminem album. This is the same shit MGK addressed on his diss song Rap Devil.
Yeah, there's a difference between us. I got all of my shit without Dre producing me.
Then he mentions 50 Cent's song Candy Shop and Lil Kim's Magic Stick, on which 50 was also featured. A lot of people, like Fat Joe for example, often criticized those two songs for sounding too similar, and for using the same concept, something that doesn't bother anyone anymore these days. I mean, let's be honest, if those two songs came out today, nobody would criticize them for sounding similar. Originality was way more important back then than it is now. Nowadays you have thousands of songs sounding exactly the same and using the exact same formula, and nobody really cares about it. Then he's analogizing himself to the quote-unquote fat kid named D'Angelo Bailey, who was Eminem's schoolmate and bully that abused and beat him on numerous occasions. M rapped about him in 1999 on the song Brain Damage off the Slim Shady LP. D'Angelo actually filed a lawsuit against M for mentioning him. And now Game is saying that he got in shape to beat his ass again. It's just mind-blowing how Game knows all these lyrics even though he doesn't really listen to his music. Then he accuses M of masking his depression and still using painkillers and drugs like back in the day when he was an addict that overdosed on methadone in 2008. M was always joking about Vicodin in the early 2000s, saying he'll swallow whatever he got in the medicine cabinet. Most of it was of course for shock value. Following this, he mentions M's Bad Meets Evil rhyming partner Royce 5'9", saying he's the white version of him. I mean, I can see why you would think that, knowing that both of them were always going back and forth together, trying to out-rap and outshine each other, while mimicking each other's styles to show who can do it better. Royce, for example, took inspiration from Eminem's verse on the song Dead Wrong. He mimicked that style for the original version of Renegade.
I got a line in my pocket, I'm lying. I got a 9 in my pocket, and baby, I'm just dying to talk.
I got a skunk in my trunk, I'm lying. I got a pump in my trunk, you dying. How many lumps niggas want?
They did this all the time to sharpen their skills. They were perfectly in tune with each other. But M has so many different styles, flows and personality traits in his music, and he raps about things that Royce would never rap about, like killing his mother for example. So I wouldn't say that he's biting Royce or anything, but it's still a fair comparison, I would say. M started rapping about a decade before he even knew Royce. They actually had a falling out in the early 2000s and basically beefed for like a decade. It's just weird how he makes these comparisons all the time. The Black Slim Shady, the white Royce 5'9". I mean, this whole song is just you trying to mimic Eminem's style, and you say Eminem is the white Royce 5'9". So are you saying that you're rapping and sounding like Royce right now? Cause if M is a copy of Royce, and you mimic M, then you would be rapping like Royce. But your parody sounds nothing like Royce. So M can't be the white Royce 5'9" if you think logically. If your parody sounded like Royce and M at the same time, then you could make an argument, but it doesn't. But anyway, Game always gets criticized for using too many name drops in his music. And this diss track is no exception. But the next line is pretty clever actually. He wants M to call D12, a group that he pushed to the side to sign Slaughterhouse, which has a pig as a logo. He calls M a swine basically, and wants D12 to turn him to minced meat for neglecting him. Game raps his ass off on this, but most of these lines lack punch in my opinion. They need to be more direct and personal. They're not disrespectful enough for M to record a response. And on top of that, most of the things he mentions have already been addressed in old diss tracks, like on Cannabis' song Airstrike for example, on which he used D12 against him. It was way more disrespectful and direct than what Game is trying to do here.
You push D12 to the side to sign for Tron 5. If Proof was alive, he'd be dying inside.
Next he mentions Big Sean, saying he's the biggest rapper in Detroit, while implying that M ain't the number one over there. But that's objectively untrue. Sean sold like 4 million records in total. M on the other hand sold over 200 million, so it's another poor attempt to belittle Eminem while making up alternative facts. He then compared Eminem to white wine, saying he'll stick a fork in him and he's done. Just like when you're sticking a fork into a cake to see if it's fully baked. Eminem used a line similar to this on Cannabis.
He kinda smelled a little like Courtney Love. I figured if I stick him with a fork, he's done.
Then he repeats what every Eminem critic in history has said about him. His music is not made for the clubs, the bars, or to be bumped in the car. And that's why he can't be the best rapper. We've heard this from numerous rappers in the past. Sada Baby, Gucci Mane, Lord Jamar of course. Game only bumps one of M's 11 albums. Which is of course an exaggeration to get his point across. Cause this song is almost like a love letter to M's old style and projects, with all the references and lines that he's picking apart.
Another question, Game, what do you think of Recovery?
Classic. I love it. Eminem is the only rapper that nobody ever wants a problem with, including myself, man. Eminem is like the most lyrically insane. Even when I was going at 50 and me and Dre wasn't seeing eye to eye, man, I stayed away from the white dude, because he a problem. You know what I'm saying? I understand it. You know what I'm saying? Like Eminem, I don't think it's a rapper he won't slay. And you don't even want a war with Eminem. He crazy.
The next line is definitely taking it too far.
I'd rather listen to Snitch 9 like 69 times and participate in 69s with 69 nuns.
He said he'd rather listen to Snitch 9 69 times and participate in mutual oral sex with 69 nuns than to listen to M's music. Bro, like how can you say you would rather bump 6ix9ine if you know every Eminem lyric by heart? For you to prefer Tekashi over M, you must be one hell of a 6ix9ine stan to accomplish that. I mean, you know Eminem's lyrics even better than me. Just imagine how many lines from 6ix9ine he can recite if his claims are actually true. You're a Karen, call the cops, tell him it's a black man on your block with a Glock and he got it cocked. A Karen is a term for a stereotypical, angry, entitled, white, middle-aged, middle-class woman that is abusive to service staff and often racist, always calling the cops for the dumbest and pettiest reasons. The game says M will call the cops when he sees a black man on the block with a Glock cocked, and this black man is of course the game. I don't see how you're a Karen if someone pulls up with a Glock in front of you and you call the cops. You don't have to be a Karen to call for help when you're about to get shot. But who knows, I could be wrong. M is living in a white gated community now, so I can see why he would say that. But the problem with this line is of course the fact that he's contradicting himself. A few lines earlier he said that M wants nothing more than to be black, and that he surrounds himself with black people only. And now all of a sudden he's a Karen that hates being around black people. So which one is it?
He got all the blackest friends, he wants to be African. You're a Karen, call the cops, tell him it's a black man on your block.
But this could of course also just be a silly reference to one of Eminem's Instagram videos in which he tells rappers to stop rhyming the words block, glock and cocked. And Game rhymed these exact same words in the exact same order.
You cannot hit the block at all by any means with a Glock. You cannot.
You can't be on the block with the Glock and make it cock.
No.
It's too much. It's too much. No block, cock.
You're a Karen, call the cops, tell him it's a black man on your block with a Glock and he got it cocked.
Next he mentions Pac, Phil Collins, Epstein, things that are completely unrelated to M, but like I said earlier, Game is known for overusing name drops that serve no purpose. And he probably exaggerated it here, to mock Eminem's weird subject matter that can be all over the place at times, especially in his more recent music. But it's still taking away from all the dope and creative punchlines he has on here. A lot of filler lines to stretch his thing to 10 minutes like a money-hungry YouTuber, and to make it seem like he dropped an atomic bomb on your ass, even though it's filled with hot air basically. References that serve no other purpose than to be references. Mentioning Eminem's 2010 interview with Anderson Cooper, in which he talks about rhyming the word orange, which lacks a perfect rhyme.
People say that the word orange doesn't rhyme with anything, and that kind of pisses me off because I can think of a lot of things that rhyme with orange.
What rhymes with orange?
If you enunciate it and you make it like more than one syllable, orange, you could say like, I put my orange 4-inch door hinge in storage and ate porridge with George.
So silence, I'm thinking, nothing rhymes with orange.
Game is trying to mock him here, but it's not really doing much damage. Almost as corny as Eminem trying to rhyme orange with banana.
Bitch, I can make orange rhyme with banana. Banana.
Okay, I take that back.
So 50, Slim Shady, please stand up. Shoot the fade with me, I love to put these hands up.
So will the real Shady please stand up and put one of those fingers on each hand up?
So instead of M putting up his middle fingers, Game wants to put his hands on him and fight him. I could 40 Glock you unarmed. 40 Glock is a rapper that Game had beef with a decade ago. He actually pulled up and beat him up on camera at one point. Game wants to do the same with M. Unarmed, as in without a 40 Glock, or a gun basically. Drop the world on your head with one arm, referencing Eminem's song with Lil Wayne called Drop the World. Then he mentions Haley in the next line, implying that he kidnapped her to get his attention and to strike a nerve. Cause that was always the easiest way to trigger Eminem back in the day. To mention his daughter or one of his daughters and M would just drop a diss track on your ass. He then used a nice play on words, cause G's ain't supposed to fold up. G's as in gangsters and also grands, meaning thousands of dollars. You know, gangsters are supposed to be tough and grands are impossible to fold if they're stacked together. As you can see, he has a lot of these cool one-liners and funny punchlines, but they kinda get lost in all the filler bars, misinformed nonsense, alternative facts and wild accusations. He's once again spitting a bunch of unrelated nonsense for the sole purpose of sounding lyrical, mentioning all the diseases that he knows out of nowhere. And then he's going back to the important stuff and bringing up the old debates on who had the better verse on the song Renegades, while potentially throwing a subliminal jab at Jay. Game had a beef with Hove in the mid-2000s. Saying he gave it to him could mean that he defeated him in a battle. But at the same time he's saying that Jay had a better verse than M on Renegades. Most people, including Nas, Jay and Snoop, would disagree with him here.
At one point in my career, I was thinking that M was better than Jay just based off of Renegade because the Source magazine said that Eminem got Jay on that verse. I read that and that shit was instained in my brain, and so I thought that too until I became a vet.
Then he's once again belittling, mocking and denying Eminem's accomplishments, achievements, status in the game and legacy, saying that even after 23 years he still hasn't left a mark or made an impact on the hip-hop culture. Which is of course objectively untrue the way he said it, but I'm pretty sure he was purposefully exaggerating it to get a point across, implying that many hip-hop heads, especially black people and minorities in general, are not feeling Eminem the way they feel other greats of this culture like Big, Pac, Andre from Outkast, Nas, etc. Saying he's not top 5 in his, Big's, Pac's, Andre's and Nas's eyes. I mean, Big and Pac weren't even around anymore when M blew up. But yeah, I don't think they would have him in their top 5s. It would have been very unlikely. It's worth to note that M was still in his top 5 not too long ago when he posted this tweet. But he's of course in war mode now, so everything needs to be exaggerated. Like him saying M is lying about being the greatest. I mean, Eminem is not the only one that does it. Every rapper has called himself the best at one point, even the whack ones. It's not really a lie, but a mindset basically, to aim for the top. A completely normal thing to do in hip-hop. I mean, it's a competitive genre. It's a sport, almost like a battleground. You're supposed to think that you're the best, or talented at least. Or else, why are you on the battlefield if you think you'll get killed instantly? But of course, you shouldn't be delusional about it and start fights with the big dogs even though you are just a small fry. I mean, Eminem always gives props to the OGs, legends, pioneers and veterans. And last time I checked, he ranked like 10 MCs above himself. So Game is basically looking for attack surface that isn't there. And ultimately just punching the air.
For some reason, people want you to believe that you're not better than people or that you shouldn't think that you're better than people. I've always told myself that you are the best rapper in the world, or else how do you function? How do you function in this competition? Because everything that we do, if you're doing it on this level that we're doing it, is some type of competition. So it's like when I said what I said about M, it was to challenge him.
He knows that M is in the GOAT conversation and that's why he brought it up. You can't battle the best while telling him that he's the best. You have to bring him down to your level, at least at eyesight or so that he's beneath you. And for most people, Game ain't part of the GOAT conversation, and that's why M can't be either. At least that's how Game thinks. He ends his verse by comparing M to Vanilla Ice and himself to Suge Knight, implying that he will hang him upside down from a hotel balcony and basically force him to sign over the rights to his catalog, just like Suge did to Vanilla Ice in the 90s, made him sign over the rights to Ice Ice Baby, which in the end made him millions. So Game is basically treating him like a cash cow. I'm Not Mr. Nice Guy is a reference to Will Smith's song Mr. Nice Guy, on which he responds to Eminem and his disses on the real Slim Shady. The bridge is a reference to a song M did with the Mad Rapper in 1999, called Still Crazy. In the fourth verse, he takes aim at Jimmy Iovine, Eminem, 50 Cent, Dr. Dre, Kim, and a bunch of other people. Game says he's shadier than Shady, crazier than Kim, mentions Eminem's comic book superhero persona that he used on The Eminem Show, where he depicted himself as Robin and Dr. Dre as Batman. I really like this whole Batman scheme that he's using right here.
So when the bat signal goes up in the clouds above the buildings, I hope you live long enough to see heroes turn into villains.
He mentions the bat signal that is used to call the Batman, meaning Dr. Dre and Eminem, and the villain in this case is the Game, who was once a hero that was fighting on their side. M lived long enough to see the world turn the Game evil. This is a reference to another character in the Batman universe called Harvey Two-Face Dent.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
He keeps the Batman scheme going by mentioning more iconic villains like the Joker and the Riddler. Then he touches on Cleaning Out My Closet, a diss song dedicated to Eminem's mother, saying that he'll clean out his closet for M and his half-brother Nathan. Then he mentions 8 Mile, Eminem candies and Snoop Dogg's debut album Doggy Style in a nice play on words, while saying that people would rather listen to Snoop than Eminem. And then he references the song Kill You of the Marshall Mathers LP to say that he kidnapped Dr. Dre, and that he will cut him to pieces with his chainsaw. The problem here is that Game fucked up his timeline. In the second verse he said, I killed Dr. Dre in my basement last night. And now in the fourth verse we can still hear Dr. Dre in the background moaning and trying to scream with his mouth duct taped. And yeah, he's about to get killed.
I killed Dr. Dre in my basement last night. Hello? Hello? Paging Dr. Dre? He ain't got a lot to say.
So you're saying that Dr. Dre magically came back from the dead so you can kill him a second time. Makes sense. I think he was either sloppy with his writing and overall structure, or this is just a science fiction story where you can kill people multiple times in a row. But I guess he just wanted to do the same reference twice cause it was that good.
I killed Dr. Dre in my basement last night.
And Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead. He's locked in my basement.
Paging Dr. Dre? He ain't got a lot to say.
Then he mentions 50 Cent, saying he always got shit to say even though he hasn't released an album in like a decade. He should go back to doing songs and start writing rhymes for Eminem in order to save his career. Tells 50 to take aim at his butterfly tattoo, basically inviting him to a battle, and says he will push him back into his metaphorical cocoon. Does he still rap or did he have a change of heart too? This is a nice double entendre in reference to a dating show called Change of Heart, in which Game took part in. 50 clowned him for that in the past, like on the diss track Not Rich and Still Lying.
So what, I was on Change of Heart, so what, I was a stripper.
His girlfriend on the show ended up dumping him, just like Mariah did Eminem after their brief relationship. He then says the Cannons is blam blamming, to make people think of Nick Cannon, Mariah's ex-husband who has dropped multiple diss tracks on M after he dissed both on Bagpipes from Baghdad in 2009, and wiped down my stripper pole with the hair grease from your bandana. This is a jab at 50 Cent, who exposed Game's past when he was a stripper on the previously mentioned diss track Not Rich and Still Lying from 2007. Problem here is, we already forgot about that line. I mean, it's 15 years old. It was just a rumor that 50 brought up. And now 15 years later, you more or less confirmed that he was speaking the truth all along. We thought 50 was just trolling. Game always denied those rumors and said it was all made up to hurt his reputation. He clarified that his mom owned a strip club at one point and he was always trying to stay away from those accusations. He never liked it when people called him a stripper, but in this verse right here, for the first time ever, he more or less admitted that it was the truth all along and that he was lying in the past. So he kinda shot himself in the foot with this one. He then brings up 50's feud with Dipset, saying he wished he was Joel Santana or Cameron. Could have also been about Eminem, but I don't really see the connection here. It's hard to tell who he's trying to address. Durag for 10 years and never had one wave. This one is probably a shot at M, who used to wear durags in the early 2000s. Don't know if he wore it for 10 years though. I mean, 50 did, but the line makes more sense if it's directed at M, cause white people usually don't wear durags. With the next lines, he implies that he felt like a slave when he was signed to Aftermath, and that he got blackballed by the industry for running away and leaving the label. His career got buried in a grave and now he's back from the dead to haunt Slim Shady. The next lines are probably the hardest on the entire song. I'm not talking about the Mom Spaghetti reference for the song Lose Yourself, I'm talking about the reveal of Eminem's mother Deborah still being a minor when she gave birth to him, and Eminem's father Marshall Bruce Mathers being in his early 20s when it happened. 20 when the egg was fertilized, and 21 when M was born. So yeah, pretty messed up. I'll leave the birth dates on the screen so you can do the math yourself. The story that Game told contained mistakes though. He kinda messed up everyone's age at that time. He either made mathematical mistakes, repeated what other people have told him, or just lied about it and exaggerated it. Cause Eminem's mother wasn't 15 like Game said, and his father wasn't 22. But that of course doesn't change the fact that she was a minor when it happened. So Game's overall point still stands, even if he messed up. And nobody has really mentioned it in a diss track before. This is the level of disrespect I expected from him throughout this whole thing. Game then rubs salt in his wound by saying that she had to give up her dreams and raise him when she was still a kid, just to see him grow up to become an embarrassing, jeans-wearing white boy that thinks he's black. I really love what he's trying to do here. But the problem I have with it is once again the part where he calls him a Karen. His description of M is inconsistent and contradictory. I don't know if there's actually Karens out there that wish they were black, while surrounding themselves with black people. It's like calling somebody fat and skinny at the same time. So he's a little too inconsistent with his insults and accusations. He should have definitely avoided contradicting himself, especially after teasing this diss track for like 4 months. I mean, he had that long to work on it. And this song's supposed to be a story. That's what makes it even worse. There are MCs who contradict themselves way less in freestyles.
He got all the blackest friends. He wants to be African. You're a Karen. Call the cops. Tell him it's a black man on your block.
Little Marshall Mathers, mad cause nobody thinks that Marshall matters. Love this line. Then he flips Eminem's lines on Stan and also references scenes in the music video. The ripped photo of himself that Stan patched together with a picture of Eminem to make it look like they're a couple. Game stitched together a picture of 50 and Eminem for the same reasons. He then referenced another key moment in the fictional story of Stan, where he's waiting with his brother in the blistering cold for Eminem to get an autograph, and they get turned down and disappointed.
He's only 6 years old. We waited in the blistering cold for you. 4 hours and you just said no.
Probably leave us in the blistering cold.
God made you damn near perfect, he just missed your soul. This is another double entendre. M is not only lacking personality, but the word soul is also referring to African American cultural tradition and pride. So God messed up by not making Eminem black. You ain't the shell of who you used to be. Once again saying that M fell off, right before he shoots and kills Stan's brother Matthew, who was driving the car just a second ago. Wait, what? I would really love to see a music video for this. But anyway, next he's teasing Eminem that his wearing of hip-hop fashion is cultural appropriation. And that's of course because he's white. He didn't say this to him when they were cool with each other in the mid-2000s. But now all of a sudden it's a problem. Eminem's race is always the main topic of these diss tracks. His biggest weakness and mistake in life was to be born white. And of course we have to beat the shit out of him just for that.
How dare you!
Ask Paul Rosenberg if it's even appropriate for me to make that statement. Love this line. Paul Rosenberg is Eminem's manager. He's known for interjecting from the background of Eminem's interviews and laying down strict terms on what interviewers are allowed to talk about. And not only that, he's almost like a protective father to him. Someone who shuts down all the bullies who try to pick on him, or even joke about him. So it's great that Rosenberg gets mentioned here.
Did you re-dye your beard or get another facelift or do shrooms in your mom's basement until you nod and see spaceships?
Eminem dyes his hair. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Although at this point I'm not even sure what his natural hair color is. But definitely not blonde. Speaking of blondes, Game dyes his hair too. But that's a whole different topic. The facelift thing was a rumor that Nick Cannon started. Me personally, I don't believe him. He just lost a lot of weight and body fat, especially in his face. He looks a lot skinnier than he used to in his youth. But the thing about the shrooms is true. He was famous for them in the late 90s, but he quit them for good after his 2001 assault conviction.
I know you fiending for a Dr. Dre basic and addict in the basement.
Dr. Dre said,
Slim Shady, you a basic.
People always criticize M for his beat selection and the production on his most recent albums. Dre produced tons of bangers for him until Recovery. But after that, he was kinda absent from his music, although still credited as an executive producer. But he's also trying to say that M needs Dre to defeat his drug addiction.
You never understood ebonics or cadence.
Once again, M doesn't understand black culture and what it's like to be black. And he also doesn't know what it's like to feel the music, the beats. He has no sense for rhythm, and he's rapping off beat without even realizing it. His cadence is something that I often criticize in my videos. So it's great that I'm not the only one who feels that way. Next he's twisting the introductory lyrics of Eminem's My Name Is from the Slim Shady LP in 1999.
Hi kids, do you like Primus? Wanna see me stick 9-inch nails to each one of my eyelids?
Hi kids, here's some fun. Let's all say nigga once.
Gotta dish you, my niggas be cocking pistols. Pussy niggas stick with dick.
M always encouraged the kids to do the most fucked up and stupid things, but the one thing that he couldn't do is to tell them to use the N-word.
Your fans want a rap guy, well fuck it. I'ma give him one.
Referencing Eminem's song Rap God, which is his technical rap magnum opus. His fans started to call him a rap god, and Game is here to prove that he's the one that everyone's been waiting for. The last line was an amazing way to end the diss record. He said, "I came to put Slim in a box, but you already live in one." He wanted to put Eminem in a coffin, but he's already living in a box, meaning his house, which he can't leave through his superstardom and fame. He needs to pay thousands of dollars to be able to step a foot outside his house. His fans, stans, paparazzi, haters, enemies, they're all ready to jump on him the moment they see him. Eminem is like Michael Jackson. He can't do anything like a normal person. He's a prisoner to his fame and success. And that alone is more than enough for Game to say that he's as good as dead. Love it. Perfect way to end a diss song. In the outro, Game concludes the song by tauntingly begging Slim to respond to him on a Dre beat, leaving no doubt that getting an answer record is his goal. This could have been one of the greatest diss tracks ever if 70% of this wasn't filler. I know he was trying to prove himself here, and is probably holding back some rhymes in case Eminem responds. But the whole first half could have been cut out in my opinion. He reused some ideas of Eminem's old enemies like Cannabis, Nick Cannon, MGK, Lord Jamar, Ja Rule and Benzino. But I still enjoyed it as a song. As a diss track it was mediocre, I would say. But that last verse was fire. I just wished he had 3 more of those and a better beat. I mean, the beat for the first part of the song was dope, but then it changed and worsened in the main part when it got interesting. Anyway, shout out to Game, shout out to M, let's see where this goes. Really looking forward to a response. At first I didn't want these two to beef and battle, but hip-hop is in such a boring and terrible state right now. This is the most refreshing thing we've had in a while. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. See you in the next video.